Imagine you walk into a machine. 1 second later, 2 people walk out. Both of them say, "I am you." Both of them are right. This isn't science fiction anymore. Not really. It's a thought experiment philosophers have been stuck on for 50 years, and nobody has solved it. Not the scientists, not the philosophers, not you once you actually sit with it. Here's the setup. A machine scans every atom in your body, every memory, every habit, every fear. It records it all down to the last detail. Then it builds a perfect copy. Same body, same brain, same thoughts mid-sentence. The copy wakes up convinced it's you. It remembers your childhood. It feels your anxiety about tomorrow. It even remembers walking into the machine just seconds ago. Now, here's the part that breaks people. What if the original, you, doesn't disappear? What if you're standing right there next to your copy and the machine technician just shrugs and says, "Congratulations, there are 2 of you now." Which one is the real you? Your first instinct is probably, I am, obviously. I'm the one standing here asking the question. But stop for a second. Your copy is asking the exact same question with the exact same certainty. It doesn't feel like a copy. It feels like itself. From the inside, there is no difference at all. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because the question, which one is real, assumes there has to be one true answer. But what if there isn't? What if identity was never the solid, single thing you thought it was? Philosophers have a name for this.
It's called the teleporter problem, and it was popularized by Derek Parfit, a philosopher who spent decades trying to prove that the self we think we have, the unbroken, continuous I, might be an illusion. Here's how Parfit framed it. We assume identity works like a thread. You as a child, you as a teenager, you right now, all connected by one unbroken line. But Parfit asked, what is that thread actually made of? Not metaphorically, literally. What is the physical thing that makes you today the same person as you 10 years ago? It's not your body. Your cells have mostly replaced themselves. It's not your memories. You've forgotten most of what happened to you, and the memories you do have are reconstructions, not recordings. So what's left? Parfit's answer was unsettling. Nothing. No single thread. Just a chain of overlapping moments, each one connected to the last by memory and personality, but none of them connected all the way back to some core true self. He called this psychological continuity, and he argued it's all identity ever was. Connection, not sameness. Think of it like a rope, not a single fiber running from one end to the other, but thousands of short fibers, each overlapping with the next, each one only touching its immediate neighbors. The rope holds together, it feels unbroken when you run your hand along it, but no single fiber spans the whole length. Pull the rope apart, fiber by fiber, and you'll never find the one true strand that makes it a rope. There isn't one. There's just overlap all the way down. That's what Parfit thought a person actually is, not a soul. Not a fixed essence sitting somewhere behind your eyes, just overlapping moments of memory and personality, each one resembling the last closely enough that the whole thing holds together. Until one day, in a machine, it doesn't. Which means the teleporter question might be the wrong question. We keep asking which one is the real you, but Parfit would say that question only makes sense if there's a single indivisible self to begin with. If there isn't, if you were always just a chain of connected moments, then both copies are equally fully you. Not half each, not one real and one fake, both. That should feel like relief. Instead, it usually feels like dread. Because if identity is just a chain of connections, then it can branch, it can split, and it can also break. Not every philosopher agreed with Parfit's solution, by the way. Some tried to rescue the idea of a single real you with a different rule. Whichever copy is the closest continuer, The one that's most similar, most directly connected to the original, with the fewest interruptions, gets to count as the real one. Under this view, if the original you is destroyed in the machine and only the copy walks out, the copy simply is you, full stop. The same way you're still you after a long surgery under anesthesia. But the moment two copies exist side by side, the rule collapses. Neither one is closer than the other. Neither wins. The tiebreaker doesn't have an answer because the question was never built to handle a tie. Think about what happens when you go to sleep tonight. Your brain activity changes. Consciousness, as far as we can tell, stops. And tomorrow morning, something wakes up in your bed that remembers being you, feels like you, and continues your life exactly where you left off. Is that the same you that fell asleep? Or is it a new person, built from yesterday's leftover memories, who simply believes it's a continuation? You can't check. You can't compare. The only evidence you'll ever have is the feeling of continuity itself. And that feeling, according to Parfit, is exactly the kind of thing that could be generated by a copy, too. This is the part that should actually bother you, more than the teleporter ever could. You don't need a sci-fi machine to run into this problem. You're already running it every single day. The cells in your body are replaced on a rolling basis. Your gut lining regenerates in days, your skin in weeks. Even neurons, the cells most people assume are permanently you, undergo molecular turnover throughout your life. The version of you reading this sentence is not made of the same physical material as the version of you that existed 10 years ago. Atom for atom, you've already been replaced. Just slowly enough that it never felt like a replacement. It felt like a life. And it's not just the body. Your memories aren't recordings either. They're reconstructions, rebuilt slightly differently every time you access them. Ask someone to recall the same childhood story 5 times across 5 years, and the details drift. Not because they're lying, because memory doesn't play back. It rewrites every single time, using whatever materials are on hand that day. The you who remembers your 10th birthday today is, in a small but real sense, authoring a slightly different memory than the you who remembered it last year. You've been quietly editing your own past without ever noticing the edits. So if a sudden copy is unsettling, but a slow one is invisible, what does that tell you? It tells you that what you call yourself was never about the material. It was never about some unbroken physical thread. It was about the story, the memory chain, the feeling that yesterday's version of you handed something off to today's version, and today's version will hand something off to tomorrow's. Which brings us back to the machine. If 2 copies walk out and both carry that same handoff, both remember being you, both feel the continuity, then by Parfit's logic, the question isn't which one gets to keep being you. The question is whether you were ever the kind of thing that could only exist once. Most people want there to be a true answer, a real you hiding somewhere underneath the copies, the cells, the changing memories. But the more carefully you look, the less there is to find. Just connections. Just a chain, doing what chains do, linking one moment to the next, convincingly enough that it never occurred to you to ask what it was made of. There's actually something strangely freeing buried in this, if you let it sit. If you're not one fixed, unbroken thing, then the version of you that felt humiliated in a memory from years ago, the one you still cringe at, was never permanently welded to who you are right now. You're not dragging a single unbroken self through time, accumulating every wound and mistake onto one continuous record. You're more like a relay. Each version of you carries the baton for a while, then hands it off. The version running the leg right now didn't make all of those old mistakes. It only inherited the memory of them. It also changes how strange the future starts to look. Right now, somewhere, researchers are working on ways to map the human brain in detail. Not to copy a person tomorrow, but the underlying question isn't actually science fiction anymore. It's an open problem in philosophy of mind that's quietly waiting for technology to catch up to it. When it does, the teleporter thought experiment stops being a hypothetical. It becomes a policy question, a legal question, a question about who gets to inherit your bank account, your relationships, your unfinished arguments, if you can suddenly exist twice.
And maybe the most uncomfortable part of all of this is that you don't get to opt out of the question just because the machine doesn't exist yet. The slow version is already running. You're already a chain instead of a thread. You've just never had to watch it happen all at once in a lab with two bodies standing in front of you instead of one body slowly aging in a mirror. Maybe that's not a loss. Maybe a self made of connections instead of some fixed essential core is more flexible than you think. It can survive sleep. It can survive forgetting. It might even survive a teleporter. But it raises one more question, quieter than the others and harder to put down. If identity is just a chain of moments connected by memory, then every time you forget something, a small piece of that chain goes dark.
So the real question isn't which copy is you, it's how much of you is already gone. If this kind of question gets under your skin the way it got under mine while researching it, that's exactly the kind of thing this channel exists for. Taking ideas from philosophy and science that sound abstract on paper and showing you why they're actually about your life, right now, today. There's a part 2 of this question worth exploring later. What happens to moral responsibility if identity isn't fixed? Can a different you really be punished for something an earlier version of the chain did? That's a video for another day. For now, sit with this one. Ask yourself honestly, if you walked into that machine tomorrow and walked out twice, would either version of you actually feel like you lost anything? Or would you just keep going, the same way you already have been, one overlapping moment at a time?